and welcome to this episode of ArtsAbly in Conversation. My name is Diane Collin. I am a woman with short hair, blue eyes, and glasses, and today I wear a striped black and white top. Behind me are an electronic piano and white shelves with books. This series presents artists, academics, and project leaders who dedicate their time and energy to a better accessibility for people with disabilities in the arts. You can find more of these conversations on our website, artsably.com, which is spelled ArtsAbly.com. Today, ArtsAbly is in conversation with Charlie Mosbrook, a singer-songwriter and a music educator living in Cleveland, in Ohio. You can find the resources mentioned by Charlie Mosbrook during this episode on ArtsAbly's website in the blog section.
Remember who we are as we come from near and far. Women marching in the streets and bent-kneed athletes. We are refugees and dreamers, the immigrants you blame. We will come from near and far. Remember who we are. Remember who we are. We carry open scars, forward in our wheelchairs you cannot disregard, as we block the halls of Congress for the fear of a graveyard. We will come from near and far. Remember who we are. And we stood up to the Klansmen and the Nazis just the same, and to a tone-deaf president for whom the victims share the blame for a deadly act of terror. To him it's just a game, and we will come from near and far. Remember who we are. We are scientists and teachers and reporters on TV, investigators, lawyers. The facts are plain to see, and the evidence is obvious. Don't look the other way. We will come from near and far. Oh, remember who we are. And we know that all lives matters, but it doesn't seem that way when the consequence of living is dying every day. If the motto of your force is self-service and neglect, we will come from near and far. Oh, remember who we are. Schools are filled with children who live with different rules. Drills and lockdowns put in place can't save them from these fools. As you pander to the worst in us, the friends are laid to waste. We will come from near and far. Oh, remember who we are. We will come from near and far. Remember who we are.
Welcome to this new episode of ArtsAbly in Conversation. Today, I am with Charlie Mosbrook, who is a singer, songwriter, and a music educator living in Cleveland, Ohio. Welcome, Charlie.
Hey, Diane. Good to be here.
Thank you for being here.
Sure.
Okay, so let's talk about your rich career because you have a long career in music, and I wanted to start by asking you if you could give a bit of background, tell me who you are, and also if it's possible to provide a visual description. Thanks.
Okay. Well, I am Charlie Mosbrook. I am in Cleveland, Ohio. I am a 55-year-old white male with sort of dirty blonde, medium length hair. I'm wearing a red shirt and I need a shave. That's something that's jumping out at me right now, and I have blue eyes. Um, and I'm a singer-songwriter. I've been at this for over 30 years now, and as a musician living with a disability, I've been at this about 14 years, which is it's a different world for me, but I've made the most of it, and in some ways, it's been a better fit for me than previously.
So when did you start your musical journey?
I'm guessing I was probably a toddler, and I was taking spoons and pounding on my high chair. And then in about the fifth grade maybe, I started playing drums in the school, and took drum instruction for about 4 years, as well as being in the choir. And then I started listening to some well, I'd always listened to songwriters and such, but I was a poet, and I discovered that I could write songs if and the guitar was kind of a good tool for that. I think I switched to bass briefly from the drums, and then thought the guitar was more suitable for me because it sort of became a drum. The acoustic guitar is sort of drum-like in its in the approach, and for songwriting, it just made a whole heck of a lot more sense. So I got into it that way, and I think I just sort of had a foolish belief in myself and just started going forward and writing songs and trying to play them for people. And I didn't, I think I thought I was great. I don't know how good I was, but I was passionate and persistent, and that carried me a long way to really being a little more accomplished. And I did a lot of street music for a while, and that helped me to develop my skills.
Did you do music studies, or were you studying something completely different than just doing?
I mean, in school, I took the drum lessons, and more recently, I've been studying blues, Piedmont blues styles with a guy who's very good at that in this area. And so I've excelled quite a bit, actually, much more recently than I think I have over any other period of my life. But more or less, I just sort of find the right people to spend time with and watch their fingers and ask questions from time to time. I did study audio engineering, so I have that background, and did a good internship with a good record label here in Northeast Ohio. So that was most of my music study, was actually in recording more so than music. But I always been a self motivator. So when it was time to learn how to play the instrument, I figured it out on my own. And when it was time to do whatever I needed to do, I just sort of studied whatever I could and then went with it. And every once in a while, I got lucky and found a good mentor who could help me out a little bit.
While studying sound engineering, it might have helped you when you were working on your own productions, right?
Yeah, it helped me to better organize what I was doing, and to just think about how things worked a little better. At the time I was studying, though, it was the early 2000s, so all of our instructors were well versed in more of the analog world, um, and everything now is software based. I mean, my desk is very clean as opposed to what I had in mind when I started building my recording setup. Now it's, really how much can I keep in the box? And while I am attracted to new shiny things like most people in music are, or most people, I think, that's just the consumer, at least in the US. I don't know about on the other side of the lakes, but we are driven to be consumers and we are force fed every shiny new object that comes our way. So there are a couple little shiny objects sitting in front of me, other than the software.
I think it's the same over there. So I know that you were performing, so 90s and 2000s, you were performing a lot in these in a lot of different places actually, right?
Yeah, well, I spent a lot of years when I was younger. I would go play open mics, as most songwriters would. And I came back to Cleveland and started working in a coffee shop I had previously worked in. And the owner he said, "What can we do to make Monday night more profitable?" And I said, "Let's do an open mic." And he said, "Do it." I had no idea what I was doing, but I grabbed a couple friends and said, "Let's figure this out." And that was very successful for about 14 years before the coffee shop. We lived the coffee shop actually, and moved to another coffee shop. So another 20 or another 10 years added to that. But during that time, there were years where I was running probably 4 open mics a week and then running around on weekends doing 3 or 4 different shows. So very, very busy. I don't maintain that kind of schedule anymore as far as shows go. Though when I do a show today, I get paid a lot better than I used to at that time in my life.
Were
So,
you performing mostly your compositions or were you performing
um,
artists you liked?
these days, I prefer a house concert or some sort of venue, more like a concert presentation or a festival. I don't really like playing bars or coffee shops very much anymore because oftentimes they put me in an awkward position where I find um, people who have had maybe too much to drink are tripping over me, and I don't want to have to spend the time defending myself or my instrument or my chair. It's and so I just find those if I'm not going to have fun doing the gig because I'm spending time trying to protect myself, my instruments or my chair, I tend not to go back. It just seems too much work, and I want to focus on the music. So I look for concert presentation opportunities.
And it's really artist-wise, it's your own music, right? Or are you
Primarily.
also
Well,
doing?
I really started off with the idea that I was a songwriter and I would be doing my own music. I also got really interested in Woody Guthrie's music and wanted to carry that forward a little bit. So I played at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame during they did a big program on Woody Guthrie, and they had a couple of us come in and sing a bunch of his songs. But today, because of my teaching and uh, I work so much with the traditional uh, songs just on my own or through teaching that I usually include some of that. And I think it's important. I think the traditional music for folk music, if you're doing original folk music, for myself, it's informed heavily by traditional music. So to help people better understand where the music I'm playing today comes from, I like to, there's some inclusion to the past. And I think it's important for people to know who Elizabeth Cotton or Woody Guthrie or Mississippi John Hurt are, and where those songs come from, and how that tradition it's all part of the same story. And so I do tend to do some of other people's music, but yeah, primarily I'm a songwriter. I thought
So
it answered your question properly.
yes, it did. Um, once you had an accident, right?
Not really. Well, it was degenerative disc disorder, is what they put on all the forms. So the discs between 5 and 6 of the cervical part of my spine started to break down, and they started bouncing against the spine. So they went in and they cleaned it up. Nobody could really tell me how they broke down. I have some suspicions based on my lifestyle and some goofy things that I may have done, but I couldn't nail it down. And I remember being in the physical therapy unit my first night. I was going to be in there for a while, trying to figure out some basics. How do you put your pants on, and how do you get in and out of a car, and blah blah blah. And I remember the question going round and round and round. And all of a sudden, I put the brakes on. I said, "Stop! You're going to think about this your whole life, and it's going to make you crazy. It doesn't really matter how or what happened. The goal here is to move forward." And that's basically become my mantra: move forward. Just keep moving forward. And except when I have to back out of places, that's pretty good. You know?
So moving forward in music, what did it mean? You had your career and your journey, and now you were in this new situation sitting.
Yeah, I had to rethink everything. Just the way I perform. I would stand, and so there's a guitar that's on a strap around my shoulder, and I can move it so I can get up the neck with this hand. I can do. All of a sudden, it's sitting on my lap. So just that had to change a little bit. The way I do a lot more finger picking these days than strumming across the neck because it's just more comfortable. Um, so just the actual. So I had to kind of rethink how I play. Plus, these two fingers on both hands, I get a lot of tingling, and they don't always land properly. So these two, these are the workers. These get involved, but not as well. So I needed to really kind of rethink and retrain some of the muscle memory to make sure that, well, this needs to get to that string, and if it's there, do I feel it? And bad days I don't feel it. On good days, it does what it needs to do. Bad days, I there's definitely a little clunky action, and I try to ignore it and just move on through or adapt to that situation. Performing, because I stood, that obviously changed. Um, but I had gear, back in the 90s and through the early 2000s, I was rolling around with 50, 75-pound speakers and amplifiers that were 200 pounds, it felt like, and so much gear. So probably the very first thing I did was to go on to one of these sales sites. I don't know if it was Craigslist or eBay or what, but I sold off all my gear and replaced it with things that I can physically pick up. So when I go out and do a small, like a farmer's market or a house concert, I have a little 7-pound all-in-one package that really sounds great. It's wonderful. And when I travel across the country, I've got a little luggage thing on the front of the chair where I can put the guitar. I put my backpack back here. I put a smaller pack hanging from the chair, and then I have my little speaker sitting on my lap in between my torso and my guitar. And the country's mine. I can go wherever I want, or I come into your country. I'll be in Montreal next February, I believe. And
Oh.
as long as I can get across the border, I'll go there. And I travel mostly by Amtrak if I can, because it helps me to carry what I need. I can have it all with me in the seat. I can get to and from the restroom. There's usually, when you travel Amtrak, it's a good idea to have a plan to have somebody pick you up. So everything's always taken care of, and I don't have to be as self-sufficient as I once was when I would drive around the country and do that. And I've never started driving again either. I'm frankly afraid of it. So it's
It
family
takes some
members.
time to adapt, right? To every
Yeah,
situation. So
yeah. And this way works for me. But yeah, we adapt. So everything really did change. I think also as a musician, or as a folk musician and doing topical songs and singing in favor of people's rights and humanity, and that being a middle class white male, straight white male, my voice was only in observation for the most part. I didn't ever experience, I experienced some moments of this isn't fair, but I live in privilege and I know that I did. So being in a marginalized group as a disabled person, all of a sudden my perspective changed quite a bit, because now all of a sudden I understood what it was like to live in a world that was not built for me. That is, that quietly excuses me or even undermines my ability to succeed. And I'd never experienced that before, and now I understand that better. I don't let it happen, but I understand it better. I am, again, where I began was persistence, and persistence has always been a big part of that whole moving forward plan.
And you, with your work, you also work with a lot of um, voices. You want to, I think, be involved in these communities where there is a right to be and a right to be present and a right to, and this is advocacy community. Can you talk about this advocacy work you're doing?
I work with a group called Roots of American Music, and it's an educational organization based here in Cleveland. And we have a number of programs. One of them is called Stop the Hate, which is based around, why am I blanking the word? It's basically, we go into the schools and we do a songwriting workshop with students, to write songs that hopefully answer the questions of giving people an opportunity to simply live, giving people an opportunity to excel, pushing back against the voices of hate. And so we'll write songs as a class. One of the most, to me, we've won a number of awards with these songs, but one of the most important ones that I was involved with, I went into a school in the Glenville neighborhood. And Glenville is a neighborhood in Cleveland where Superman was born. The two young men who drew Superman were, and their high school has produced quite a few very good NFL stars, but it's a very poor neighborhood. It's a neighborhood that has a lot of challenges in many ways. And one of the big challenges is nutrition, and they don't have grocery stores. It's one of these food deserts where the kids don't have access to good food. I went into the school and I said, what issues are really concerning you? What impacts you? Where do you see change in this community, in your world? And they said, food. We can't. So we wrote a song called Skittles, and they said, we need better victuals, and all we have here is Skittles, because that was their perception. They go, where do you get food? At the gas station. So we wrote this song, and the judges in the songwriting contest, are oftentimes people with a lot of resources. And my hope was that that song would reach the right ears, and people would say, yeah, these kids really do need food, and we need to do better as far as bringing nutritious food into different communities. And good groceries shouldn't just be available to very affluent neighborhoods, which that's the way the grocers work. I mean, any one of the big ones, they come in and they survey the area and they say, is this profitable or is it not? And that's not how we should look at the distribution of food or medicine or housing or anything like that. But that's where we're at right now. And so we use these opportunities to give the kids an opportunity to really think about changing the world and think about what parts of their world need to be changed and what can be better. And in so doing, I learn a lot from them. And then we also teach a program called Blues is the Backbone. And I look at that sort of teaching American history through the lens of the blues. So we start in about 1850 as slavery is at its peak, but there's a big fight going on. They need it. So the Underground Railroad is a big part of the beginning of that story. And banjos being played on a gourd. Like you can find videos of Rhiannon Giddens playing a banjo like that. And this year we finished the class after 8 weeks with Bruno Mars, and I was able to trace the lineage of American music from Bruno Mars back to an old banjo made with a gourd, or as I would say to the kids, like a pumpkin, because that made sense to them.
That's fantastic. And
Yeah.
that's really important to make them understand that the music we play today have roots, and that if you're able to play what you're playing today, that's because of all these musicians that were before us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
and it's really, I think it's important for the children to understand, or adults to understand, that they come from something, that they come from a huge history, that their roots of, the history of the universe winds up in them, and then what they do today will impact what's ahead of them. And to me, that's a very, very important lesson. And in music, we can illustrate that.
You're also a member of Folk Alliance International, right?
Yeah, I'm currently on the board of trustees for Folk Alliance International. I was formerly the president of Folk Alliance Region Midwest, which serves the Midwestern United States and Canada. And I'm a first year board member with Folk Alliance right now. And that's fun. It's a great group of people that I'm serving with, and we're serving a lot of needs, I think, within the music industry, and for helping people in the folk music world to be able to establish them and have the tools available to them that traditionally go to the money makers. And anybody in folk music knows, if you want to make $1 million in folk music, start with two. So trying to find find ways to help our community grow and become stronger, and to have those resources and tools, and to know that they're not alone, that the musicians who are playing, and it's not just folk music, but anything that's not, I think as a young musician, to me, success in music was doing what Mick Jagger or Michael Jackson were doing. And in truth, and I said this to somebody this morning, waking up and being able to put a guitar in my hand and making music, that's success. I get to do that every day. That's fun. I get to perform for kids. I get to perform for older people. I get to perform for people my age. I get to record, and I get to help other people to make their musical livelihood something practical and sustainable. And to me, that's success in music. Almost more so than, I'm not saying I would walk away from Mick Jagger's opportunities, but I like where I'm at today. It's pretty good. I wouldn't have imagined it as a teenager, but it's, looking at it now, I'm like, this is cool. We're doing good stuff.
So is there specific projects that you might want to highlight?
Currently, I've got I've got a handful of songs that I'm working on right now. I just finished up a few streaming records. One was a collection of Grateful Dead songs performed as pure folk songs, single instruments, and each instrument, it's called Song Hunter, and is sort of a tribute to Robert Hunter. So each song, I'd highlight a specific instrument, such as Fire on the Mountain. I used a mountain dulcimer, because it seemed to fit the song. Or Ship of Fools, I used an ukulele, and it really seemed to fit the song. And I really just wanted to highlight the songwriting because people had said to me for years, what's so great about the Grateful Dead? Oh, they sound all the same. I'm like, oh, listen to those songs. It's not just the mind-numbing jamming going on. There's wonderful songwriting. I also recently put out a streaming record called They Deserve Better, which was a collection of old songs of mine that I'd recorded previously that may have been recorded on like a cassette 4-track or something like that. They weren't really presentable any longer. So I went and reworked them and and just had a lot of fun recording them and putting them. So I think those two are the most recent ones that I've worked on that I feel really strongly about. The next one will be all original music, new original music, and that's what I'm working on now. And the new stuff is always the most difficult place for me is figuring out what do I want to say? What do I want to say? And once I have that in mind, all of a sudden the floodgates open up and the lyrics start coming. I think they're coming right now because I think I know what I want to say, and it's just capturing that.
In what you want to say, maybe there is something that you could explore at a certain part of your life, which is about working in what I call disability arts for quite a long time now, and learning and adapting. And so, what it is for you to work in that environment where you have access needs, you need to have an accessible stage, and you need to have people understand that artists with disabilities exist. And what
Mhm.
is it for you to work in that kind of environment?
Well, I've always said to presenters, they said, well, they'll look at me and say, well, we're not sure if we can actually accommodate you. And I said, you know what? If you tell me it's a stage, I will get on the roof if it's necessary. You let me answer that question. Never answer that question. And so the one thing that I've always encouraged music presenters whenever I'm sitting on a panel or anything like that is ask the artist what they need. Don't assume that I can't because you look at me and you say, oh, he can't. I would say revise that thinking and realize that I'm a lot more persistent and I have a lot of challenges from day to day that I have to figure out. And I'll figure this one out too, is sort of always my thought. So I always hope that the music presenters give me an opportunity to tell them what I need and what I can and can't do rather than for them to quietly just sort of write me off, assuming that I can't do it. Um, I've dealt with all kinds of weird, I mean, like any performer who lives with disabilities, we deal with all kinds of strange stages and a ramp that was meant for kegs or not to bring a human being up that I feel like I'm going to tip over backwards if I try to go at that angle. Um, so there's always challenges, but for me, there's always a way. There's always a way, and it might look awkward, and uh, I try not to be on stage and make that the focal point. I want the music to be the focal point. I want to forget about those struggles as much as I want the audience to forget that it's happening. But I also want them to be aware of the struggles too. I mean, to me, that there is a big part of performance as an artist with a disability, um, where we're educating people. We are letting people know that we are more than capable. And we're letting people know that, yeah, there are some things that aren't that easy for us, but we are more than capable. So ultimately, when I'm on a stage, I want the audience to know that uh, they're looking at people who shouldn't be written off, shouldn't be marginalized in any way, that we will figure it out. And then working within an organization like Folk Alliance International or Folk Alliance Midwest or locally FolkNet, we are always looking for ways to even the playing field. And I'm fortunate I get to go on site search committees to find where we're going to do our next conference. And with that work, I had the opportunity to look at showers and say, why does your hotel put the wand 6 feet in the air on the other side of the tub from the bench? And then the soap is another 6 feet. It's like, why are you making it harder? This is supposed to be an accessible room. So I have the ability to go into hotels with huge financial resources backing me, and their desire to have those resources, come into their hotels and say, I don't think you're really serving everybody. And I think that, we'd be more apt to come to you if you served all of our people. And so I find a lot of benefit in being able to work with the nonprofits that are presenting these conferences, because I think in that capacity, I have the ability to educate people about our needs, and then just being able to serve on panels and things like that. Festival organizers and different venues, they come to our panels and they say, what do I need to do to become more accessible? And I said, well, when you on your website have a line where I can spell out my needs for you. We would love to be able to serve every single disabled person in the world, or person with a disability. I'm sorry. I always try to maintain that people come first. So person with a disability. But from my perspective, the most important thing we can do is to encourage people to ask, what are the needs? What will make this a more enjoyable event for people? And so I find that working in that capacity, I have the ability to make some change, because I can be a part of that conversation and help to foster that and make sure that the conversation actually happens. Mm-hmm. I think with before I got involved with Folklines Midwest, that conversation didn't happen. And once I was involved, I was a workshop coordinator, so it became a workshop. So
Very
positioning
good.
ourselves, I think, is really important to change. If you want to change the world, you got to get in line and figure out, how do I position myself to be a part of that change?
We are both part of an organization, or an organization called ROMPT, which is doing a fantastic work on that for the musicians with disabilities. And really, they really try to get this conversation ongoing in a lot of different fields and in musical styles too. And I really, really appreciate that there is a diversity in these group of musicians that ROMPT highlights, which I really, really appreciate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm fairly new to RAMPT, and oddly, I was very surprised the other day. I got an email saying I'd been nominated for vice president. So I guess I'm running for vice president of RAMPT right now. But I really like the work that the organization's doing, and really appreciate being able to be a part of it and being able to represent it, and to use it as a resource to learn about things that will help me to be a bigger change maker within the other organizations that I'm involved with. Yeah.
There is an interesting work that they're doing with the professional ROMPT musicians. They're doing some meetings every month where they are presenting the latest activities or the latest collaborations possibilities, and also meeting other people from all across. It's mostly the United States, but we are several from Canada. There are several people from the UK, several people from Europe, and just to be able to chat a little bit and know what others are doing, that's already great. It's going so much further than that, but just that part with the conversation between us and how people are doing in their career and how they are able to connect with other organizations. That's fantastic. I have a last question for you.
Okay.
And this is about, speaking of collaboration and meeting people, this is about collaborations and also inspirations. Are there people in your life who really counted or had an influence in the way, guided you, had an influence in the way your music journey progressed?
Yeah, there are a lot. Um, One musician that comes to mind is a woman named Avon Baird, who very accomplished finger picker and songwriter. She's really a fantastic musician. She's later in life now and recently had a heart attack, which has limited her ability to sing. But when I was younger and when I was newly dealing with a spinal cord injury, she really helped to nurture my talents along and was a big part of that and making me in a lot of ways the songwriter and the player that I am today. More recently, I've been working with a songwriter or musician, a blues musician named Kevin Richards, who's been teaching me the Piedmont blues styles and all kinds of other blues styles. When I was in school for recording, I worked with I had an internship with a group called Telarc International, which records or they recorded Dizzy Gillespie or the Cleveland Orchestra or the Atlanta Symphony. They did these amazing recordings, and I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, and I walked into the lobby and there's a case of Grammys that I never even knew we had one in Cleveland. And they had hundreds of them for these amazing recordings. So everybody who was involved in that was really a big part of helping to shape the way I look at presenting music and what is important in the production of music. But probably most importantly would be, early in life, my mother and my father were, big music lovers. My mom would play guitar for me and sing Jim Croce songs. My dad is a big jazz historian and would impress upon us all of the great jazz music. And we would go out and see classical music, and there was just always music around. So that really set me up for my love of music and my love of the history of music and the traditions that were involved. And then now later in life, I've been married for about 7 years, and I've been with my wife about 14 years. And she's been here with me through this whole journey as a person with a disability, and supporting me. And like I was telling you a story before we started the interview about we were coming home from a baseball game and I got caught in a big puddle that I couldn't see what was underneath it, and I kind of got stuck. And she sort of stood back and waited until I figured it out, and I did. And a lot of times that's what she will do, which I love, because until I'm really saying help, she knows who I am, and she's going to let me figure it out. Because if she doesn't, then I don't figure it out, and she knows it. And but she's always there to support me. If I can't figure it out, she's gonna climb in that puddle and pull me out. And she's always been right there with me, supporting every little thing I do. So I think those are the primary people who have set me up to be who I am today.
Well, thank you for the conversation. It was really nice chatting with you about your career and your journey as a musician. And yeah, wish you all the best with your project. Are you touring again? You told me that you're going to Montreal.
Well, we'll be in Montreal for the Folk Alliance Conference.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to be in Chicago in about 2 weeks at the 2A Street Coffee House. And I've got performances set up around the country here and there, sporadically. I haven't set up a tour since the pandemic. I almost did a couple of years ago. There was a great rail pass deal, and I put out feelers, and people weren't ready to come back to doing house concerts. And when I tour, house concerts are really my first choice. Obviously, if I could find a big venue, 500 seats, and they're going to fill those seats, I'm there. But house concerts are my bread and butter when I tour. So we're getting close to that, but my teaching schedule's become so busy that I'm trying to manage it. I'm trying to shed a couple nonprofit organization, so I have a little more time for it soon.
Okay. Well, good luck with everything and enjoy.
Well, thank you. And thank you for having me and spreading the word about how capable we all are and
Yes.
how you know,
Okay.
we're an important voice in the music world. So thank you.
Well, have a fantastic day and talk soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye. Take care.
Okay.